Hello, can you hear me? Check, check. One, two. You good? You good? Yeah, okay. Whoops. Y'all need this anymore? Hello, check, check. Two down. Okay, I got you. Hello, check, check. Can you hear me? One, two, three, four. Checking. Good. All right. I'm gonna turn it off and we'll turn it back on when we're ready. Okay, it's gonna go off until this starts. Start. Okay. Hello, check 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Good. Everybody good? Okay. You're welcome.
Good morning. Early this morning, the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department and Atlanta Police Department, in collaboration with the ATF, GBI, and FBI, apprehended an individual linked to multiple acts of vandalism and arson. As you can see by the arrest, that there are people who are using the Public Safety Training Center construction to conduct violence against fire, police, private businesses, and people. There have been over 24 acts of arson recently, and I'm grateful to our law enforcement partners for taking the first steps to bring the alleged attackers into custody. The people of Atlanta deserve to be protected by well-trained, well-equipped first responders, and the Public Safety Training Center is critical to our comprehensive public safety training strategy that has already produced a 20% reduction in violent crime in the city of Atlanta. That means more Atlantans are alive, more are thriving, and that is by our actions and our strategies. See, these people are threatening members of the Atlanta City Council, they're threatening county commissioners, city employees, and employees of private businesses and their families. They do not want Atlantans to have safety. They do not want Atlantans to feel that safety. They do not care about order. They want chaos. They use misinformation and technology to attempt to recruit others into their violent cause. They have a destructive agenda. But as you see today, they will not win in the end. The training center is well on its way to being fully operational by the end of this year. We're moving forward as planned and not allowing the distractions to deter us from creating a nation-leading 21st century public safety training center with curriculums around anti-bias training, de-escalation techniques, and proportionality. We have made an intentional effort to include the voice of the people and the recommendations from 2 different citizen groups and committees. The Public Safety Training Center has passed every vote that it has been taken for it so far, from the City Council to the DeKalb County Commissioners. It has been approved by the Environmental Protection Division. Every lawsuit that opponents have attempted has failed in the courts. A majority of Atlantans believe that we need a place to train our police and fire rescue officers. The new facility is almost 70% complete with construction. And see, our current training facilities are old and dilapidated and condemned, and we need effective places for us to train our first responders. So while this downward trend in crime is good news, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. New firefighters and police officers need training, and existing veterans need ongoing training annually. The same goes for our EMS and our E911 personnel. In fact, we continue to train right now, but we want to be able to train at the Public Safety Training Center soon. As is the case with other careers, professional development and continuing education are critical in public safety in order to ensure the best possible outcomes for our communities. The new center will allow EMS, firefighters, and police to train alongside civilian co-responders and mental health professionals to learn de-escalation and harm reduction techniques that reduce the use of force with viable alternatives are necessary. Our community deserves well-trained first responders, firefighters, and police officers, and our first responders deserve a first-in-class training facility that meet the needs of our growing population. To learn more about what we're doing, what's going on today, I'd like to turn it over to Fire Chief Rod Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 2 weeks ago, myself, along with our police chief, came before you, and we said that we would not stop our attempts to go after the individuals who are responsible for the targeted attacks against our city and our attempt to build a public safety training center. Yes, this is an ongoing investigation, and we have been resulting in targeted attacks against our city. I'd like to thank our local and federal partners for assisting us in our efforts thus far, and it has not ended, and it will not end until we catch everyone involved. As a result, we had an arrest early this morning for an execution of a warrant. That individual was arrested is John Robert Mazarak, born March 1993, and he is charged with first-degree arson. I repeat, he is charged with first-degree arson. This is not about freedom of speech. This is about criminal attacks against our city and our efforts to build a much-needed public safety training center. So we urge you, if you have information, please contact Crime Stoppers. We can be reached at 404-577-TIPS, and the reward is up to $200,000. We will now hear from our police chief.
Thank you, Chief Smith. Mayor, good morning. Thank you for all you're doing to keep Atlanta safe. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your public safety headquarters. As has been alluded to by our mayor and our fire chief, at 6 a.m. this morning, a task force of law enforcement professionals, and I am very proud to be joined today by representatives of the ATF, the GBI, and the FBI that stand behind me today. This is a collective effort to keep Atlanta safe and to stop criminal acts across Georgia. This morning at 6 a.m., investigators of the Atlanta Fire Rescue, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the Atlanta Police Department, joined by uniformed elements of this department, the Georgia State Patrol, executed search warrants signed by judges who had reviewed the probable cause, allowing us to enter 3 locations to seek evidence connected to acts of vandalism and arson that have occurred over the last few months. As investigators went to those locations, they were armed with an arrest warrant that Chief Smith just alluded to, that his investigators had secured, charging Mr. Mazarak with arson. It was at one of those 3 locations that we believe held evidence of the arsons that we found Mr. Mazarak, and he was taken into custody. And he was taken into custody and was not harmed. And fortunately, at the end of those search warrants, no first responders of this city, of our state, or of our federal government was harmed as well. Now, Mr. Mazarak is charged with the arson that occurred in July of this past year, when a precinct of the Atlanta Police Department, which houses our Special Operations Center, which is key in protecting the parades and the festivals and the dignitary visits to this city, was set on fire. And equipment used to keep the city safe was destroyed. But what was often overlooked is inside of that precinct was a protector of this city. An Atlanta police officer was inside. So for those that say this is only about the destruction of property to make a political point, that is wrong. We are very fortunate that we did not stand before you all in July to note the passing of an Atlanta police officer that was killed in an arson attack. And despite the almost 30-plus arson attacks that have occurred across this state and this country, we've been very fortunate that no one has died yet. And it is the duty of this collaboration that stands behind me, this collective effort of law enforcement, to hold everyone accountable that is using arson and vandalism to intimidate and insert fear to make this city less safe by undermining the ability and the effectiveness of its fire department and of its police department. You know, I was the chief said something that reminded me, this isn't, Chief Smith, about free speech, an attack on free speech. Free speech is standing on any street of this city, in any park, in our city hall, and criticizing your government, criticizing your police department. I have seen over the last 2 years our officers stand professionally in many, many settings when the chant has been, if you build it, we will burn it. And our officers have protected that. The First Amendment is alive and well in Atlanta, Georgia because of professional law enforcement, the professional law enforcement that our mayor believes in. But while we have the protections of the First Amendment alive in this city because of professional law enforcement, the rule of law is alive in this city and this state because of professional law enforcement. So you can chant all day long, if you build it, we will burn it. But if you set police cars on fire, we're going to find you and we're going to arrest you. If you set police precincts on fire, we're going to find you and we're going to arrest you. And when you set youth centers on fire, we're going to find you and arrest you. And when you set construction equipment on fire, we're going to find you and arrest you. And when you intimidate members of our elected bodies, we're going to find you and arrest you. And when you intimidate members at their houses of worship and you vandalize their homes and their private vehicles, we're going to find you and we're going to arrest you and we're going to place you before a court of this county for the evidence to be heard. We will continue to uphold the First Amendment throughout Atlanta, Georgia, and we will continue to ensure that the rule of law is present and everyone is free from fear and intimidation, and everyone can rest assured that their first responders will be there for them in the time of need. Thank you again to the GBI, the FBI, the ATF, Atlanta Fire Rescue, the Attorney General's Office, the Insurance Commissioner, Gwinnett Fire and Rescue, all of those that have been at work making Atlanta safe and helping us in these investigations to stop these arson sprees. More arrests will come. They will come soon, and we'll continue to hold people accountable. To everyone that has been involved in these acts are in jail and before a judge. Crime Stoppers, you heard our fire chief mention it. There is a reward up to $200,000 for information leading to the arrest and the conviction of anyone that has been involved in a fire right here in the state of Georgia. Please continue to call that number. Please, members of the media, continue to highlight that number. It is very critical and key to our success in this investigation. So thank you, Mayor, and thank you to our law enforcement partners for their work on this case.
Thank you, Chief Shearbaum. Thank you, Chief Smith. And again, thank you to our partners at the ATF, the FBI, and the GBI, and all of our law enforcement partners across the region, the state, and federally, and all of our public safety officials. Now, I'll take any questions the two chiefs and I can answer.
Let's start with AJC and come around. Let's start with AJC.
How confident are you guys that with this arrest and with most arrests coming, that this attack will stop now that you have made your first arrest in this case?
Yeah, in my profession, when we put people that are causing harm to any neighborhood of the city, the crime stops. Will there be others that may try? There may be. But we hope this sends a strong message that you can't get away with arson and vandalism and intimidation. So we know that proper enforcement of the law leads to safer neighborhoods, and proper actions of the courts lead to safer neighborhoods, and I believe that will take place here.
Roughly how many more suspects do you anticipate making arrests?
The investigation will play that out, but there are others that I anticipate will be arresting in the weeks to come.
Where did this arrest happen? In Atlanta, in a different part of the city, in a different state?
Yes, we will release the addresses later today, potentially where the search warrants were served. It was a residence here in the city of Atlanta where a federal task force was serving their portion of the search warrant.
Yes, Courtney Francisco with Channel 2. What evidence did you find at those locations that led you to believe that this person should be arrested for arson?
Certainly, we're processing all of the locations now. The evidence to make that arrest had already been in possession of law enforcement even before we executed the search warrants this morning. And keep in mind, before any law enforcement agency can ever enter a home or make an arrest, we have to present our evidence to a judge that is neutral and detached to have them to assure that our actions are proper. So the arrest warrant was signed before today, and the arrest warrant was not connected with the search warrants. Those were independent of the arrest we'd be making once we located this gentleman.
All right, Amy, can you tell us anything about Mazarek? Is he from here? Anything else?
Currently a resident of Atlanta, Georgia, moved here from Illinois a few years back.
So you guys alluded a lot to the Crime Stoppers reward, $200,000. I know the investigation's still ongoing, but how were you guys able to track him down, link him to these to be able to get the search warrant, get the arrest warrant? Was this related to a public tip, someone called Crime Stoppers, or was this something just good investigative work for the fire department, the police department to be able to make this happen?
Yeah, the investigation is still ongoing, so we're not going to be able to speak specifics. Of course, Crime Stoppers is anonymous, and so we can never be able to speak to tips that came through that location. But this is a collective effort. There's a lot of capabilities being deployed by our federal, our state, and our local partners.
Is Mr. Masaryk only being charged with one arson in that attack or other?
Right now, it is one arson, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if it's clear if he's connected to any of these other almost 30 cases.
The investigation is very active, ma'am. There's a reason we served 3 search warrants today. We are looking in a wide range of areas we believe evidence is held that will identify who is responsible for the others and who else was responsible besides this gentleman.
You said that there were 3 locations. Were they all in the city of Atlanta?
2 were in the city of Atlanta, 1 was in an unincorporated DeKalb County.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask again about the evidence, and can you tell us anything about which arson it could have been related to? Any details?
Well, the arrest is for the arson at the Atlanta Police Precinct in July of 2023. The Special Operations Precinct, that was on 180 Southside Industrial. That is where motorcycles of this department were set on fire. That is the precinct that was occupied at the time that we allege that Mr. Masaryk set that fire, and that is why he was arrested this morning.
Do you have an idea of the dollar amount of the damage during that arson attack?
Our Public Affairs Unit can get that for you. I do not have that right in front of me right now.
Just lost it right on my head there. So, when you guys came out last 2 weeks ago, we heard from the Stop Cop City folks saying that they're going to continue doing stuff like this or these public demonstrations because they just don't feel like their voices have been heard. This may be a question for the mayor. Feeling that they aren't getting to be able to. They feel that this should be stopped. They have 100,000 signatures on a petition ballot, and they just feel that their voices aren't being heard here, and this is their way of being able to make their voices heard. I mean, any comment on that?
Yeah, this is not the way to make sure your voice is heard. This is destructive, this is criminal, and this is leading to someone being arrested and going to jail. So this is not the way to make your voice heard. The way to make your voice heard is to write letters or send information that you think that we can make alternate decisions by going to city council, by asking us what changes we can make. But this is why we had 2 distinctive different sets of citizen groups provide input that we have incorporated just about all of those citizens' input. Things from changing the front entrance from Key Road to Constitution, things like making sure that there's publicly accessible park space and trails, to making sure that we move the firing range to a different location. Dozens of decisions have been made based upon qualified, good communication with the community. But violence is not the way to communicate to elected officials, not to your public safety official. Violence and arson and vandalism is communicating that you have a political message that you're trying to send, as well as a destructive message, not a constructive one that would lead to safety in our community. So what I would say to them is, make sure that you learn how to use your voice in a way that Dr. King and others have used their voices to affect change, but nobody should be setting fires or destructing public or private property or threatening people and intimidating folks. Thank you.
So, of course, in the past, the opponents of the claims have been charged with domestic terrorism, with RICO. Do you feel like these people who have been causing this should be charged with domestic terrorism and RICO?
Yeah. I don't set charges, but I do think that if you burn down police vehicles, if you burn down construction vehicles where people are in them, that you are an arson, you're a vandal, there is charges for that, and that's why Mr. Masaryk sits in custody right now. I don't know the specifics as to how the DA and the Attorney General sets the cases for which charges they get, but they definitely need to be arrested, and that's what's happened today.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.